Rachel, you've had quite a journey with your mental health. So I want to go into it and give you kind of the space to share more about when you started to notice these changes in your life and how your daily life has been impacted by it since then.
I would say like my mental health journey is still a journey I'm on now. And so it hasn't been like resolved by any means, but I've definitely like learned slowly how to deal with it as it comes in and out every day. And so back in like late 2018 is when I feel like I first like found the words to like identify what I was feeling. And now that I'm in therapy, I think I've definitely realized like maybe I was just more of an anxious child, but didn't know how to express that necessarily with a title, right?
Okay.
And so in 2018, I finally was like, I feel anxious. And then that just like helped me figure out what that meant, then like how to talk about it with people. I would say when I first started like really experiencing like heavy anxiety, it mostly like impacted me like socially, which is really weird for me.
Yes,
Like,
you're a very bubbly person.
Yeah, I'm a very social person. I love being around people and like I am just naturally extroverted and like to be the life of the party.
Yeah.
And so I would say starting back in 2018 specifically, probably until like 2020 even maybe, I would like find myself like isolating myself and saying like, no, I can't go, or being like, yeah, I'll go to like a hangout or a friend's birthday party or something. And then when the time would come, I'd be so anxious that then I just wouldn't show up. And everyone would be like, Rachel, where are you? And I'd be like, not responding because I'm in my bed, I'm crying because I wanted to show up, but I couldn't. And it was just kind of that cycle for a while. And specifically with like isolating, which does not help your anxiety at all. And so when I felt like I couldn't be that person, then it like perpetuated the anxiety even more. To be like, people don't know what I'm going through. They don't understand, or they don't know the real me. And so then that made me feel even then more upset, and then like had a harder time than dealing with my anxiety because then I would just wish it would go away instead of like working with it.
Sure.
In 2019, I would say I experienced my first anxiety attack.
Okay.
I was going to Israel with the ministry group I was working with at the time. And I guess my family has personal experience of what's going on in Israel. And this was even like back then, like my mom's aunt was basically on a bus that got bombed in Israel and was in the hospital. And so my mom was like, are you sure you want to go to Israel? Are you sure you want to do this? And so that just like instilled fear with me that something wrong was going to happen when I was there. And so I just remember like trying to pack my clothes and I would be like, I can't pack. I don't know what to pack. I don't know what to pack. But really I was like, I'm too anxious. I'm too anxious. I don't know what's going to happen there. I want to be safe. This is going to be fun. But I don't feel safe. And I don't know if this is going to be fun. Like that constant battle of trying to tell yourself the truth and trying to deal with the like the lies of the enemy, especially when I'm like, Israel's supposed to be this place. It's the Holy Land.
Yes.
So then also, I mean, I would say maybe too, it was a lot of spiritual warfare. Like I would not discount that.
Sure.
I think it definitely could have been hand in hand, like real anxiety, but also a lot of spiritual warfare.
Sure.
With that specific trip. And so I remember literally the night before, I was crying on my floor, shaking. And this was like my first anxiety attack that I remember. And just being like, I don't know what's going wrong. I should be excited. I've always been excited to travel. And like finally being able to tell my mom, like, Mom, I don't want to go anymore. And she's like, are you crazy? You're going to go. And I was like, no, I'm not. And it was like a fight. And I was like, Mom, you're not hearing me. You're not understanding that like I genuinely feel really anxious about this. And she like was able to calm me down enough to say, Rachel, you're going to have fun. You're going to go. like nothing bad's going to happen. If something bad happens, like you're with the church also would not take you if it wasn't safe and whatnot. And so she like calmed me down enough to like finish packing and I went. And the thing about anxiety, it like lasts in your body for a long time. Like from an anxiety attack, your heart, your mind might move past it, but your body carries it. And so my body was still carrying it. Like my body had a hard time relaxing, had a hard time sleeping. Whether or not I actually felt anxious, my body was telling me, you should be anxious. And so it was like a battle in that too, trying to just enjoy myself there. Later in 2019, I signed up for an internship to go to Poland for 3 months. And background story is like, this was not my first time going to Poland. I've been several times, all with like missions trips. And so like, to me, it's like a home away from home. Like I love the people there. I have a sense of like the church there, like the Christian church there. And so I like was so excited leading up to it. And I would say like, I had like normal anxieties of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in Poland for 3 months. This is going to be fun, but this is going to be hard. It's out of my comfort zone. And like, I was the team leader. I'm meeting like 6 other strangers in the Czech Republic to then become one team. And they're all going to look at me to like lead them. And so I did a lot of like leadership training that I felt strong enough to be in that position, I would say. But then once I like actually was flying there and there was no turning back, I was like, oh crap.
It's getting real.
I was like, this is so real. And then like on the airplane, like it started hitting me of like, I feel really anxious. And what am I going to do this whole summer? Is this whole summer going to feel like this? And it's so hard to, like I said, like battle the lies and the truth and like remind yourself of the truth when you're in it. Because all I want to do is spiral down. I get stuck in the twister. And that's also like exactly what the enemy wants you to do, especially when it comes to, I feel like, anything faith-based. He wants to do anything he can to distract you.
Yeah.
And when I like wanted to be bought into like what God was calling me to do, that's when I feel like my anxiety got the worst, because that was the enemy trying to distract me from everything that God was calling me to do. And so with that, it just like gets really overwhelming when you're like, God, why is this happening? Why am I feeling anxious? Why can't I focus on like this aspect? And he was like, I'm right here. I've got your hand. It's going to be okay. But then for the enemy to be like, do you really have it? Like, it's like the chip on your shoulders, you know, and the good angel, the bad angel. Like, that's what I'm like, they're both speaking into my ear. And which one am I giving the most attention to? And so I remember like trying to really focus on that when I was on the plane going to Poland. And it just like hit a spot when I got off the plane in Germany. So I like flew from San Diego all the way to Germany, which is a long flight.
That is a long flight.
And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, here we go again. And I was like, I like would rather like get back on the flight and fly home. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, I don't feel good right now. Like, I feel really anxious and I'm scared. This is what I'm going to feel like going into like for this whole 3 months. And like, that's not going to be a good leader. And so I'm believing the lies of the enemy. You're not going to be a good leader. You're not going to be able to do this. And like really feeding into that, which was like mistake number 1 for anxiety.
Sure.
And so she was like, you literally have an hour flight till you're in Poland, and you're going to be with people you know, people you're familiar with. You're just scared. And I was like, yeah, I'm scared and I don't know what to expect. And she's like, just get on the airplane. You're going to be okay. Sleep. And before you know it, you'll show up in Poland and it's just going to be like a weight lifted off of you. And I was like, okay, like I'll give it a try.
I believe you, Mom. Okay.
And so that's what I did. And I mean, really, I had no other choice, but that's what I did. And that whole summer, was kind of like battling those lies of, am I going to be good enough? And is God really going to use this for a purpose? Is God going to move in Poland? Is God going to do this? Is God going to do that? And like, that's me questioning God, right? But also I think with my anxiety, I am a performance-driven person. And I know that at my core. And so when it's also like, if I'm not going to see the results or I'm worried about the results, it just perpetuates it. And so I think that's not helpful.
Sure.
And I see that still play out in several other ways in my life today, even though I feel like I've tried to lean on God, I've learned to lean on God, but each time it occurs, it's the same battle. And so it's just, how much better can I fight this time in a way? So I like made it through the summer, and kind of what kept me going too was like, maybe once I get home, I'll feel better. Maybe once I get home and in my comfort space, everything will be okay and it'll return to normal. And it didn't. And same thing, like I try to be like, it's spiritual warfare, it's spiritual warfare. And again, it totally could have been, especially when you're doing something for the Lord. The enemy's trying so hard to fight against it. And so I came home and fell into that same coping mechanism of isolating myself, not following through with commitments, and leaving friends hanging, not texting people back and whatnot, which again is against, I feel like, me at my core of, I want to be with everyone, you know? And so it came to the point too where my family does not talk about feelings, emotions, not super touchy-feely. And so I like didn't feel like I could talk to anyone in my family. That I was like, if something's going to change, I have to figure out how to change it. And this also felt more past spiritual warfare, where there can actually be the chemical imbalance in your brain for anxiety, depression, and any other mental disorder. Is it can really be a chemical imbalance. And so as someone who does not take basically any medication, like I will avoid Advil at all costs. I knew, well, I can't afford therapy. And I don't want to tell my family I want therapy. That I was like, the only other thing that I know might help is medication. And so I went to the doctors without telling anyone and talked to my doctor about getting medication. And I was really nervous about starting medication. Like, to me, that was also something that I was like, who am I? Like, I didn't recognize myself, but also knew, like I said, something needed to change. And that's what was within my control, is I can go to the doctors. And so I like had started medication and eventually started therapy. My mom eventually found out about my medication because she was like, what is this? Why are you taking it?
Oh, you hadn't told them that you were on medication.
I was taking it for probably a couple months before anyone noticed. I was so embarrassed. One, because I was like, you're not going to care. You're going to ask me a million questions. You're not going to be sensitive about it. And I'm a very sensitive person. Like, I'm very sensitive. And so I also was just like, this is not going to be received well. And that's also, I think, what I was scared of with my family. And eventually, once they found out, my mom was like, Rachel, you could have told us. And I was like, didn't feel safe. Like, but I just didn't know. And so, like I said, I took what I had control over and tried to do the best. But so by the time my family found out, my mom was like, I could have gotten you therapy if you didn't want to take medication first, but I was so scared. And so eventually I started therapy. So between the two, eventually I was starting to feel better. And I'd say I was like pretty steady for a while, where I just felt like I actually followed through with commitments and hanging out with friends, and felt more bubbly and less like shy about my feelings, and got to the place where I was like, okay, I can talk to my family. I can talk to my friends about how I'm doing, what I'm feeling. I could also say, actually, I need to step away for a minute and whatnot. So I felt more comfortable. Well, then obviously the pandemic happened.
Yep.
I actually think mentally I was okay during that time.
Okay.
I think if I hadn't started therapy, hadn't been on medication, I don't know what it would have been like, but I'm thankful that I actually felt okay when a lot of people, that's not the case for them. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise that it all happened earlier and I got the help I needed earlier. But between late 2020, like November until July, I experienced 3 separate deaths around me. And they're all people who, 2 of them are people I've like grown up with. Like they're my dad's friends, but I've grown up with them around. Yeah. And then another one was a pastor's wife. And that like sent me into a whole spiral of, well, why? Why did they do that? How did they get there? And I started to become like so fearful of, is my anxiety going to do the same thing to me? That was really hard. And I think at the time too, I was trying to like watch my family process certain people's deaths, my church community process certain people's deaths, and me being like, okay, I know them. I've talked to them. I know what their life is like. But obviously I wasn't the closest to them to feel the most impacted. So I like tried to be like, it's not that big of a deal. Like I try and suppress it until then recently, like there was no suppressing those emotions anymore. And it all came out again recently. And so then that's what I've been working through. The most recent were these like suppressed emotions of what I was trying to avoid about anxiety. To them being like, it's still here. And until you work through it, it's just going to become this bigger cloud.
Yeah.